Hello frog keepers, Josh here with Northern Frogger. As promised, I wanted to do a bit of a frog feeding video after the fish feeding video. So I'm just going to do these four 10-gallon tanks on this rack here. Just because I have so many frogs, it's going to be tough to do kind of all of them at once. Could end up being a pretty long video showing you all these guys eat. So I'm going to do just this rack today, and then kind of cycle through, and eventually we'll get through all of them. You get to see all of them eat, but we got a bit of a mix on this rack. We got some Aratus, there's some super blues here. We got two different kinds of Lukes, and then the Azurius on the bottom. So a bit of variety of frogs. So I'm just gonna get some flies dusted up and start dumping them in there. Okay, so I might as well show you while I'm here what supplements I use and how I dust the frogs. So this is the main one. I use the Repashy Calcium Plus. So this is mainly a calcium supplement, but it's also got some vitamins and minerals in there as well. And then every 2 weeks I do the vitamin A. And then every 2 alternate weeks I do the Super Pig. So I'm doing one of these ones every week, and then I alternate weeks, so they get those ones twice a month, and then this one with every feeding. I guess except for when I do the vitamin A, they only get the vitamin A. But when I do the Super Pig, I also give them the Calcium Plus. I find the Super Pig doesn't stick to the flies all that well, but with the Calcium Plus mixed in there, it seems to stick a little bit better, I find. And the frogs don't seem to like the taste of the Super Pig or whatever it is, but you can kind of see them, they'll grab a fly and then almost look like they want to spit it out right away if you just use the Super Pig. But it seems like mixing it in with the Calcium Plus as well makes it a little more palatable for them. So today is just going to be a Calcium Plus day. So I just use one of these deli cups for feeding. I have the top just kind of one side ripped open, just so I can sprinkle a little bit. Sprinkle a little bit into the bottom. So all the flies on this rack are going to be getting the Heidi Eye, which is the larger of the 2 flies that I have. So when I do this, you can see they kind of crawl all over the sides there, and they'll be trying to get out as soon as you open this. So what I like to do is kind of whack it a few times just to get them all knocked down away from the lip. And then just peel open one corner or one side a little bit, and then just kind of tap it on the bottom, get some flies out of there, and then again like tap it back before I close the lid, just to try and prevent flies from getting stuck in this lip here. And then I just shake them up a little bit, get all that powder on them, all the vitamin powder. So you want them to be kind of fully coated, but you don't want a ton of extra of the vitamin powders. But that's about the amount I would feed for like a pair of these frogs. So we'll go dump this in one of the tanks. Okay, so I think we'll start on the bottom here with these Tinctorius Azurius. I did wipe the glass down here to try and get a good view, but it's already starting to fog up a little bit. So I've got these kind of vented lids on here to get access in here. Although I find it's so dry, I keep them covered most of the time anyway. Usually just leave a bit of a corner open for a little bit of ventilation. But I just pop that off. Try and get these flies near the front here, but just kind of shake them out there. And I think Tinctorius are generally the most aggressive feeders. As soon as they see flies in there, they will be all over them. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but you can hear the little clicks from them flipping their tongues out to catch the flies. So we've got the female on the right here and the male on the left. So you can see a little bit of the sexual dimorphism between the two. The female is a little bit larger, a little bit heavier bodied. Just looks a little bit fatter. And then if you can kind of see from the side, kind of got to wait till they're kind of sitting in a neutral position, but you can see the female has a more defined back arch. There's a more of an angle there. And then as well, oh, they're going to be too far back there to tell. But generally, especially with the Tinctorius, the male's toe pads on the front feet will be wider. And these ones, it kind of varies a bit from frog to frog. These ones don't exhibit it a ton. I find it's really defined in my powder blues, but if you kind of look at this guy's toe pads, it's having a bit of a hard time focusing here because of the fog on the glass, but you can kind of see there when they're right beside each other, or the toe pads on the front foot are a little bit wider than the females. And then of course the other characteristic is that the males are the only ones that call, although it's pretty tough with Azurius because they do have a very soft call. You pretty much need to have your ear to the glass to be able to hear it. It's just a very soft buzzing noise. So these guys have already cleaned up a pretty good chunk of those flies. There's definitely some that got away and are kind of crawling throughout the vivarium. So these guys will kind of cruise around for the rest of the day, picking those guys off. And I typically feed the adults every other day. They'll take care of most of them the first day, and then there's usually a few stragglers left over the second day. Alright, so these are the orange banded lukes, or just kind of the standard variety. So these guys aren't quite as aggressive of feeders as the Tinctorius are. So it might take them a minute to get over here and find these guys. So I'm just going to dump flies in the other two as well. These are the Leucomelis Guyana yellow and the Dendrobatus auratus super blues. And all these guys are a little bit shyer feeders, so I think I'll dump flies in these two as well, and then try to get some shots of all of them. And these guys are starting to come. There's one of them just peeking out of the coconut hut there. I believe that's the female in there. The male sitting back there. Try and get a shot of these super blues, but they're a little bit shy. That was the male just hopping away there. And I just saw the female. Oh, there's the female. She's definitely a little bolder than the male. She's got some really nice blue on her. Oh, I think she just noticed the camera. There we go. Get a good view of her. And then here's the Guyana yellows coming out a bit. Still a little bit shy. This one male orange banded, giving you a good view. So these aren't really the best shots, I know. I did wipe down all the glass right before I started this, but it's just so humid in these tanks that it fogs up almost immediately again. So I might have to try and get some shots with the camera like inside the tank. But there will definitely be more dart frog feeding videos coming up. I want to try and get a few shots of all of them calling too. just kind of documenting what they all sound like. Alright, since a lot of those guys didn't want to cooperate very well, I'm going to feed some of these froglets too. So this is one of the grow outs, the powder blue Tinctorius. There's 8 of these guys in here. These guys are big enough that they could eat the hidey eyes, but gonna give them some melanogaster today. These are the smaller flies. And you'll see them just come running from the back of the terrarium. And you can see this other Azurius froglet over there is a bit hungry too. You can see the flies in the other tank and he wants to get in on that. So it looks like there's a ton in there right now, but these Tinctorius are so voracious, like they'll have most of these flies cleaned up by the end of the day. And a lot of times I will feed the froglets every day, as I feed the adults every other day for the most part. I do try to feed these guys every day just because they seem to need a little bit more food when they're growing. And especially with the Tinctorius, like these guys can eat so much, I find. They can really pack away the flies. Some of the other ones, like the Aratus, don't seem to need quite as much food, so sometimes I'll feed them every other day. But I just kind of judge it by like how many flies are in there. So if I feed them and the next day I come back and I can't find a single fly, I'll probably feed them again. But if the next day I come back and there's still a few flies crawling around, I'll give it another day. You don't want to feed them too much, because if there's flies crawling all over them, it can stress them out quite a bit. Plus the flies will die in there. And it just puts a little bit extra bio load on like your planet tanks. So you want to limit that, but you also don't want these guys going hungry for very long, especially when they're growing. So it's just kind of, can't really say exactly how much to feed them. It's just kind of something you got to play with and get a feel for. And yeah, just kind of judge it by how many flies are in there. Kind of dump enough in there that they're gonna clean the majority of them up initially when they come over and do this, but enough that some of them are gonna get away and allow them to kind of hunt them for the next day or so. So yeah, I don't really have time to film all these guys eating today, but I do need to feed all these guys, so I'm going to shut the camera down and give all these guys some food. Stop torturing this guy, trying to eat the flies through the glass. Alright, so that was the first installment of the dart frog feeding videos. I'm sure there'll be many more of those to come in the future. And we haven't covered nearly all the frogs, and even these ones we didn't really get to see them all that well, so I'll definitely be doing more of these. So if you like that video, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks a lot for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Happy frogging.